of the Internet and the privacy and security needs of both governments and the individual. It should be clear to all of us that we have two aspects to our life as far as security and privacy are concerned. One is a public persona and the public aspect, things that we do not care if the world sees, knows, or watches. The other aspect is the private aspect. That is perhaps the communications between yourself and your wife or your husband, or your children, or your parents, or a brother and sister, or communications within a specific group, a fraternity, or a private organization, or anything that needs to be contained between one or two people or one or more people. This is our private life that we share with one, two, or more at our choice. And this is a necessity of us all getting along. We do not need to know all of our neighbors' secrets. When we do, this is when conflict begins. So we need privacy. We need the security to know that our private lives will not be seen, watched, or distributed publicly or to people we do not want to see. The second is a global geopolitical need. And we all understand that need. In China, for example, they have virtually locked down their population to receiving information that the government deems appropriate and not seeing information that the government deems inappropriate. And China is not unique. All countries are looking at or considering similar types of legislation or similar types of action. In America, for instance, there has been talk of limiting access outside the states to child pornography and weapons-making information. We all see the danger of this, certainly. If we limit something in one aspect, let's say weapons making, then suddenly it can be interpreted in a far broader scheme. For example, maybe the chemistry involved in weapons making will become illegal. And pretty soon, maybe all chemistry of a certain type may become illegal. This is the danger of governments. This is the danger of censorship. However, there is also a need for such in many cases. And so what will happen eventually is the balkanization or the separation of the Internet into various pieces where each is controlled by a country or a political organization or a region. We need to be very careful with this because the Internet now is one of the greatest sources of knowledge ever conceived, and it is growing by leaps and bounds. And without access to the Internet, we would not have what we have today, the ability to quickly choose a direction, a path, a procedure. The second aspect of privacy is for the individual is much more concerning to me because it is much more difficult to secure. I mentioned earlier that in some cases appliances are showing up with microphones in them or even cameras, and perhaps good reasons. Nevertheless, these will eventually be used for ill will. We have applications that we choose to run on our smartphones that look at us and listen to us and can be viewed by anyone within the corporation that creates that application. And we have given them the right to do this by our acknowledgement that we agree to their terms and conditions without reading them in most cases. I myself seldom read these terms. There are too many pages, and it takes too much time. And you probably find yourself in the same situation. This has to change. Or laws need to be enacted that certain things must be made very clear up front. That if, for example, they're turning on the microphone or camera on your phone, that you have the right to know that immediately before you even install the application. The need for privacy is something that it will require tremendous effort. We know that in America, the NSA, through its PRISM program, has coerced large corporations, Google and Yahoo among them, into providing information on citizenry. It has also tapped, without knowledge, the pathways between major data centers within Google and perhaps within other countries as well. This represents a grave danger to our security and our privacy. And there may be reasons that the government wants to look at its citizenry There may be good reasons, but these need to be weighed carefully, and they need to be monitored with oversight. In America, we use executive orders to allow our clandestine or our organizations of information to access information with a court order. These executive orders can be interpreted in any way that the agency chooses. And it's not just the NSA. We know about the NSA because Edward Snowden told us about the NSA. I can assure you that all of our government agencies are doing similar things, legally, accordingly, but without oversight, without monitoring, and in a much broader sense than they were originally intended. And it is the same in every country. Governments are the same everywhere. All governments have power, and power to some extent does corrupt the people in power. We have created these governments by our own choice. We vote people in sometimes. These people that create these governments are human beings. They have fear, and they have jealousy and anger, and all of the faults that each individual has. So our governments, being composed of these people, will also have these faults, only magnified many times. If an individual has a problem with his neighbor, he may yell at the neighbor or, at worst, punch.